My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
A view that sees the conflicts in the Middle East as rooted primarily in the actions of stalwart allies like Israel, instead of emanating from the perverse and hateful ideologies of radical Islam. As such, Reverend Wright's comments were not only wrong, but divisive. Divisive at a time when we need unity, racially charged at a time when we need to come together to solve a set of monumental problems. 2 wars, a terrorist threat, a falling economy, a chronic healthcare crisis, and potentially devastating climate change. Problems that are neither black or white or Latino or Asian, but rather problems that can...
Racism has come up countless times throughout history. While one may think that racism began with slavery of African Americans in 1619, racism goes all the way back to when the Europeans first arrived to North America and found it already colonized by Native Americans in 1492. Led by Columbus, Europeans immediately portrayed them as savages who needed to be civilized through Christianity and European culture. This led to genocide, mass murder, stolen land, and attempts to wipe out Native American traditions. Racism against natives continued into history as the Indian Removal Act occurred in 1830, established by President Andrew Jackson. This act moved several Indian tribes west of the Mississippi River in exchange for their historic homeland. Along with Native Americans, African Americans soon also became victims of racism. When asked which group of people received the most racism, the majority of people say African Americans. Why? Because of the long history of them in America. The 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, was passed in 1865. Next came the 14th Amendment, which allowed blacks and people of all races and ethnicities to become American citizens. The 15th Amendment, passed a couple years after, gave those people the right to vote. However, anti-black movements grew as blacks gained rights. Jim Crow laws and black codes were set to not allow them to do things whites could. Schools, restaurants, and even public facilities such as bathrooms and water fountains were segregated. This was because the Plesley v. Ferguson said that blacks and whites were separate but equal. Many years later, the case Brown v. Board of Education overturned that decision. The early middle 1900s were a time of social progress for African Americans. During this period of African American oppression, many famous civil rights activists became well known. This includes Martin Luther King Jr., W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Rosa Parks, and many more. Both MLK and MLK Jr. led powerful movements, while Rosa Parks did her job by merely refusing to give up her bus seat to a white man. Booker T. Washington was a writer who believed civil rights would eventually be attained by the act of nonviolent protests, while W.E.B. Du Bois, on the other hand, demanded civil rights immediately and would do anything to get them there. A. Philip Randolph was one of the first black civil rights activists of his time, and he asked for FDR to desegregate the military. Due to the time of crisis America was already in, FDR said no. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned any discrimination on voting. This meant that blacks could vote anywhere without having to take a test before. The Civil Rights Act of 1968 banned any discrimination against housing. This meant that blacks, along with all over races and ethnicities, could buy property anywhere they wanted if they could afford to do so. The most recently discriminated group today is Muslims. Muslims are commonly grouped together as one race, however, Muslims can be people of all races. There have been recent Muslim attacks against non-Muslims, so now people associate Muslims with violence. However, most Muslims are generally indifferent to this violence and reserve their true outrage for circumstances involving Muslim victims of non-Muslim acts. Following the recent Paris terrorist attacks, race attacks of Muslims living in the UK rose over 300%. 10 years following the 9/11 attacks, 38,000 Muslims have been accused of being terrorists. Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda were in charge of these attacks. He was motivated by the belief that the U.S. foreign policy has oppressed, killed, or otherwise harmed Middle Eastern countries. Bin Laden constantly spoke about the need for violence to right what he believed were injustices against Muslims committed by the U.S. and sometimes by other non-Muslim states. He also called upon the United States to withdraw all of its civilians from the military personnel from the Middle East, as well from every Islamic country around the world. It took the U.S. roughly 10 years to track down Osama bin Laden and kill him. After his death, another Middle Eastern terrorist group has been on the rise, the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or ISIS. ISIS has captured Americans and people from many other countries. They have held them hostage and broadcasted the brutal execution of many of these people for all to see. The increasing presence of ISIS along with 9/11 terrorist attack have given rise to the term Islamophobia or anti-Muslim sentiment. This is the prejudice against and hatred towards the religion of Islam or Muslims. Due to many stereotypes, the increased presence of Muslims in the U.S. make people nervous, therefore making them act out. This is because people falsely assume that an attack by a small minority is a representative of that entire group.
What ethnicity are you?
Middle Eastern.
I'm Black, White, and Native American.
I'm mixed between white and Hispanic.
I'm German and Norwegian.
I'm Asian.
African American.
I am Hispanic.
What are some stereotypes against your ethnicity?
There's stereotypes against the Black community. We all eat fried chicken and watermelon and drink Kool-Aid. There's stereotypes about Native Americans, that they're all drunk and lazy. There's stereotypes about white people, that they're stuck up or snobby.
Well, I'm Jewish, so like stingy, big nose, bankers.
For white, it's more that I'm stuck up, and with Mexican, it's that I'm lazy and fairly unproductive.
People at my church always make Norwegian jokes, but it's all about like how we like fish. And Germans, I guess people could call you a Nazi.
Is that we're stupid and that we're more dangerous than any other race.
People think that we are like we party time all the time. There are two stereotypes about Hispanics, like, oh, we all wear hats. The only thing that we do is yard work. What else? Everybody thinks that Spanish is Mexico, and it's not only Mexico, it's a lot of other countries.
Have you ever had any racial encounters against your race? I'm German, and with that, I've been called a Nazi and things like that.
Just as being a mixed person, I've had different encounters with the white community. I've had people refer to me as being Black and not accepting that I'm half white. And on the opposite side, being mixed in a Black community, I've had people kind of ostracize me or judge me because my features are different and, hate on me.
Playing a game called Mingle, and it's kind of like a pre-game virtual. If you're trying to find a group, you guys mingled, and she'd be like, all right guys, mingle, group of 3. Everybody had to run around the gym, find a group of 3. I was pretty shy in elementary school, right? And so I'm going around trying to find a group. This kid tried to join this group, right? I'm like, hey, you guys got 2 people, can I be your 3rd? He says, sorry, no Asians allowed.
Oh, one time I went to the mall with a couple of friends. Then a random person working there was just stopped me for no reason, was just watching me for no reason. And they questioned me, is that yours? I'm like, yes. And like then no one else got questioned.
Have you ever witnessed any racial encounters?
Yeah, I mean, social media, you see all these edgy teens roasting each other all the time, calling them the N-word, the cracker, things like that. You ever go on Tumblr, iFunny, things like that? People can be terrible.
This tournament in Virginia, and they were hitting this team from Virginia, and it was like these 2 like white girls, and it was like 2 Black guys, and they were like, oh my god, what did they actually say? It was like, this story was a long time ago now, but I remember hearing it from one of the guys, and I was just appalled. It was something like they were talking about trees, and their plan was about like growing trees and growing more trees. So this was the white girls, and then the one of the black guys, the 2N, stood up and he was for his cross X, and he was like, "So," or they asked questions, and he's like, "What do trees have to do with the plight of African American people?" And the girl was like, "Well, monkeys swing in trees," and they were just appalled, and the judge was appalled, and I was appalled.
I have friends that are from Mexico, and I have friends that, like, for example, the guy who does my yard, he's from Mexico, and I see neighbors, like the way they look at them, the way they treat them, the way they have told me, "No, I don't want to work with them. They don't speak English well. They may not have papers. They may not be legal here. I don't want to get in trouble."
In one word, how would you describe racism?
Terrible.
Evil.
Ignorance.
Cruel.
Repulsive.
Horrible.
Ignorance.